The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, this is Paul Perez, District Governor for 5960, and I want to welcome you to our one of our district training assemblies. These are trainings that we held previously, and we're just starting to get these going again. And after a few attempts, we thought it's best let's make it into a webinar and see how that goes. And so we appreciate you joining us. We've got other people helping. Carol Weigel, who's past district governor and current trainer for the district, is on with us. And then we have district governor-elect Ed Merrick, and Ed is going to be kind of behind the scenes. We're going to keep everyone muted, but we'll have time to take any questions or comments. Just type it in on the chat at the right there of the chat box, or if you have a question, we'll get to that. So thank you for doing that, Ed. And we thought these were important. We do get presidents ready for their role, assistant governors, but we need to also make sure that our club leaders for the different areas, we're doing foundation tonight. We did membership earlier this week, and then we've got a couple of public image district training assemblies via webinar coming up as well. But we thought it was very important to make sure that those leads in the clubs are prepared for their role as well. So I'm going to turn it over to our current district Rotary Foundation team lead and past district governor, Kyle Haugen. He's going to do the presentation.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, so Paul asked me to present a little bit on the essentially maximizing your club's impact through the Rotary Foundation, as it says there as a title. And our mission tonight is really, as it says on the screen there, and it's maximizing our impact that we can have through our humanitarian actions, through both actions and giving. You know, I looked at this the other day. The Rotary Foundation is often, and Gary Campbell, my predecessor in this role, often said the Rotary Foundation is the engine that drives Rotary. Certainly, the foundation is that financial wing of Rotary that helps us collect money and do what we do throughout the world. When we look at the Rotary Foundation, the output of the Rotary Foundation is our programs, which we'll discuss in a minute, and they often lead to the 6 areas of focus, which are represented to the right on your screen there. The input is the funding from our members and other organizations that give money to the Rotary Foundation. So we have the money coming into the Rotary Foundation, and then the output is our actions, and that's where we can really impact people. Like an engine, the more gas we put in, the more money we put in, the more impact we have on the other end. So they really come, they tie hand in hand together. So we're going to talk about both of these. Tonight, though, first thing we're going to do is talk about the output, the programs of the Rotary Foundation, and how you can utilize them. After that, we'll talk about the input, the giving to the Rotary Foundation. This will include ways to give and recognition opportunities for donors. And then the last part of things, what we'll do is go through what Paul and I shared with the presidents-elect back in January as to our goals for the year when it comes to our Rotary Foundation team at the district level, and some tips that we feel you can use to really make sure that you're maximizing your impact. So in between each session, we'll pause a minute for a couple questions so you can answer things that maybe are going on in your club. So let's first talk about the Rotary Foundation's programs. What does this mean? It's the different ways we can utilize the foundation to help fund our humanitarian projects. Before we do that, though, I want to set a baseline, because I know that when it comes to the Rotary Foundation, different people have different levels of understanding about that. So I want to talk very briefly here, and this is as brief as you will ever hear about how the Rotary Foundation works. Here's how that the funding of things work. So it's a good way to highlight things. So you have different places you can contribute to in the Rotary Foundation. Obviously, Polio Plus is one of those. That's where we're a leader in the effort to eradicate polio worldwide, with partners like the World Health Organization, UNICEF, and the governments of the world, along with obviously the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation matching what we do there. And don't look at Polio Plus as an afterthought. When you think about it, with the Gates Foundation matching every dollar that we give 2 for 1, that's a huge impact that we're having with that money. And I'd be happy to talk to you more about that at any point in time. In January, I returned from India where I did a polio immunization trip. It was life-changing. And certainly with Rotary's lead in this, where we were in 1988, 350,000 cases of polio annually. This year, there's been less than 50 so far. That wouldn't have been done without Rotary. And even though we don't deal a lot with polio here in the United States, we don't deal with it at all. But it's still a huge impact that we're having on the world. We can't lose sight of that. On the right side of things, you see the endowment fund. Those dollars are held in perpetuity by the Rotary Foundation, and they're invested, and then the earnings each year come back to the Rotary Foundation for more use. So I'll leave that at that. The main one that we're going to focus on right now, though, is that annual fund, the share program in the middle. And those are the donations that come back to our district in terms of being able to use for different programs. So how does that work? You give to the annual fund. It's invested at the Rotary Foundation for 3 years, and they kind of use the investment return to really cover the administrative costs. So every dollar that you give to the annual fund is used for Rotary-related programs. So after 3 years, it's been invested. The overhead is covered based on the investment return. And then after that, half of it goes to the World Fund, which is controlled by the Rotary Foundation. And that's used for things like peace centers, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about all these things in a minute. Peace centers, global grant matches, and of course, some contributions to Polio Plus as well. The other half, and this is the unique part about the Rotary Foundation, where we really have a say in where our money is used, it comes back to our district in what are considered district designated funds. These are used for district and global grant matches and things like, not really group study exchange, don't worry about that one right now, but different scholarships, global scholarships that we'll cover in a minute. And we contribute some of that money to Polio Plus as well each year. So those are things, though, that we have control of at a district level, which is very special there. As I said, we have a say in that. It's not just sending money somewhere and you hope that they're going to make best use of it, but we can choose what we do with that money. So, and those are where we fund those programs. So this is just kind of an overview of how the Rotary Foundation works. Now let's talk about the grants side of things, as these are the biggest part of where that district designated fund, that DDF, and I'm just going to use the term DDF here, that's where this goes. There are two main types of grants. Our district grants, which can happen anywhere. If you want to help refurbish a park in your community or provide a refrigerator or freezer for the local food bank, or you want to help send a container of books to a community in Africa, or anywhere in between, you can utilize a district grant for that. These are the smaller grants. And the way we have it set up in our district is that we will match any singular club up to $3,000 for their club. Now, that doesn't always mean that it's a one-to-one match, because over the last number of years, we've had a deficit where we've had more requests for grants than we have DDF available. But in a perfect environment, we could match up to one-to-one for $3,000 per club. And if multiple clubs wanted to get together on a grant, which we always recommend partnership, we can match up to $12,000 total. So you can have a project of nearly $25,000 by working together with other clubs in our district. And that's always encouraged, just because it broadens the knowledge, it broadens what we can do together, it broadens our impact there. Global grants are a little bit larger. Obviously, in the title, global, they have to be done internationally. So if you were to sponsor a global grant in your club, you would be termed the international partner of that grant. Down to the third bullet point real quick, should put those in a different order. You need to have a host partner club in the country where you are doing the work. So right now we have the Lakeville Rotary Club is working on a microfinance project in Tanzania. They have a club in Tanzania, the Iringa Rotary Club, that is the host club of that grant. The scope of these grants is larger than the district grants. The minimum amount that is required by the Rotary Foundation is $35,000. So that means with the matching that we have in our district, clubs have to put in at least 10,000 of that, and then through the different matching, it gets up to that $35,000 or more from that standpoint. So huge impact in these grants, and the Rotary Foundation, because we're dealing with bigger amounts of money, there are a couple other things that need to fit. Number one, a needs assessment is required, and why? It's because we don't want to go to a club and say, or we don't want to go into a community and say, here's what we think you need. It's up to the community that we want to work in to say, this is what we need. So that needs assessment is required before you can go forward. And it must fit in one of Rotary's 6 areas of focus, which are these: peace and conflict resolution and prevention, disease prevention, treatment, water sanitation, maternal and child health, basic education, literacy, and economic and community development. Those are the 6 big areas of cause that we have as the Rotary Foundation, and a grant has to fit into one of those. Now, it's pretty easy to do because most projects are, but you have to be aware it has to fit into one of those. Okay, so that's how our grants work. Then we flip over to the scholarship side of things, and we have 2 different types of scholarships available. The Global Scholarship is a master's program that is eligible for anyone that has graduated from college with a 4-year degree. It can't be done within the United States for obvious reasons. There, we're not going to pay for somebody to go to grad school at the U of M, and the area of focus that somebody wants to study must fit one of the Rotary Foundation's areas of focus. A couple years ago, I sat in on the interviews and the young lady that was selected and is on her global scholarship now. She's studying in studying somewhere in the United Kingdom, and I'm drawing a blank on where it is right now. But she wanted to go into public health in her native country, and I believe Nigeria. Obviously, the child and maternal health area focus fit very well there. We fund that through our district's DDF. We provide up to $17,500 of our district's designated funds, and that's matched by the Rotary Foundation. So it becomes a $35,000 scholarship, and we get to select who the recipient is. So each year we will look at nominations for that, and go through an interview process and select a recipient of that scholarship. The Peace Fellowship is aligned with Rotary's Peace Centers, and there are 6 of them throughout the world. One is in the United States. It's a partnership between Duke University and the University of North Carolina in the Chapel Hill, Durham area, but then they're throughout the world as well. It's a master's degree program or a professional development program. So the master's degree is a year or 2 long program. The development certificate is much less time there. The things that really make this different than a global scholarship is someone must have prior related work experience of at least 3 years before they can qualify for this, and that's very different and requires much more stringent vetting of people. This is fully funded by the Rotary Foundation, so we don't, in our district, we don't get to choose somebody that gets it. In fact, there are about 150 peace fellowships that are awarded each year. There's no limit on the global scholarships because it's as many districts as want to put those forward. So if districts have money, Rotary Foundation will match that. Peace fellowships, our district will interview and endorse a candidate, but then the Rotary Foundation will actually select the recipients. And so in this case, we just had 5 people apply for a peace fellowship. The group that interviewed those candidates endorsed 4 of them. One of them did not have their application complete, so they were not endorsed. But the other 4 were, and they will go on to be judged by the Rotary Foundation. So that's our scholarships, and this is something oftentimes a lot of people don't think about because we don't do a great job promoting our scholarship opportunities. But these people truly are changing the world. I could spend the rest of the webinar just telling stories about different people I've met through my Rotary experience that have either been global scholars or peace fellows that are just doing amazing things around the world in the name of Rotary, and we should be very proud of that. So how can we participate as clubs? In the grant side of things, I encourage you to think about sponsoring your grant. Some of your clubs that are online do that on a fairly regular basis. Some do not. But it's as easy as talking amongst your club, identifying a need that you think you can solve. And then the next 2 bullets are kind of for next year, because we select global or district grants are selected once a year, and they have to be applied for by June for the following year, since our Rotary year starts in July. So you need to attend a grants management seminar, which we'll have a few of them in March, April, and May next year, so that you are qualified to do a grant, and that's a Rotary Foundation requirement. And then you come up with that idea and let the grants team know by May of next year. If you don't want to sponsor it, that's fine. You can always participate in funding of a grant, and I can tell you that each of the, I think, 19 district grants that we have ongoing for the 19-20 Rotary year, all of them would welcome partners. From a scholar's standpoint, if you have a college in your area, let me know. We're putting together a team that can help you develop ways to really promote the program within the colleges, so we get more attention paid to our program. I mean, I was talking to one person that's very involved in Global Scholars. They said a Rotary Global Scholarship is on the same level as a Fulbright scholarship, which everybody knows that term. We need to do better at promoting this to the local colleges. And if you have any potential candidates, either at a local college or somebody from your community that you think would fit, that's always a great way to go about things too. So I want to stop for a couple minutes to ask some questions to all of you. And Ed, if you want to turn everybody on, and we'll take about 4 minutes here. How have any of you maybe identified a potential grant project, or are you thinking about ways that you might be able to identify one, or are there opportunities in your community to promote or identify scholarship recipients, or do you have any other questions about the foundation program side of things? And right before Ed lets you go, I will say that I'll at least reserve the right to defer a question until the end, so we don't get bogged down in the details. Ed, it's all you.
Okay, yeah, I think everyone's unmuted. Can somebody say something?
Hello.
This is Carol.
Okay.
Hi, Ed.
Yeah, Paul, I know you guys can talk, but Betty hello, Betty down in Le Sueur. Good to have you on board. Jan up in Roseville, Patricia down in Rochester, and Sarah down in Rochester. And Sarah,
hello.
Can you hear it? Can you speak?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, you got the pin in. That's what I was concerned with. So take it away with any questions or comments that you've got so far. Anybody?
Ed, this is Paul.
Yep.
I did have a comment as Kyle was talking about the different grants available through the district. District and global, just know that we have mentors that can help you with every step of the way. They're very experienced and a great resource. So if you're thinking of something, that's a good time to seek out a mentor. And Margie Horning, she leads the grants team. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. And her contact email will be on the last page of this as well. And yeah, really all you need to do is come up with the idea for a project. Margie will assign a mentor to you, and they'll be right alongside of you the rest of the time. That's a very good point.
The other thing I'll throw in is if you can't come up with a project or don't know really where to start, you can ask around other clubs and see if they have something, and you can join them and help support it. They would take the lead, but you would be part of it, and that's a nice way our club has done. St. Paul Sunrise has done that in the past, just to kind of get our feet wet, learn a little bit of how this process works, and it's a great way to get wet, as they say.
This is Sarah in Rochester. We had an experience where a young man told us that he had applied for the Peace Scholarship. And honestly, we weren't sure what our role as a club was to vet him or help him. It really wasn't clear how clubs were to participate in that process.
Yeah, and thanks, Sarah, for saying that. And I'll be perfectly honest with you. I think we can do a better job as a district, not only bringing attention to the fact that these scholarship opportunities are available, but to help clubs understand what their role is in that. I mean, from a Peace Scholar application perspective, really the club can do a couple things. Obviously, it's identify and encourage someone to apply, but then review their application, give them suggestions, take them through a mock interview if you so desire. Those types of things are what can really help a club or what can help a candidate from that point. And we will do better at providing that direction moving forward here as we build out a team that can really focus on that.
That's great. With the online application process, it was just difficult for us sort of being notified after the fact from the students how to really participate.
Sure. Yeah, that will definitely have some more meat to it moving forward here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions about the program side of things, or can we go forward?
This is Betty Jo in LeSueur, and I just wondered if any of you have had scholarship recipients or have any stories to tell about that part of the foundation.
This is Ed. We did have a woman who was working for Centro Local up here, which was working with around immigration and stuff with the Latino community. And she applied for the scholarship and got it. And we sent her down to Costa Rica for some advanced study. And I probably shouldn't tell this story because it was a 2-year program. We paid for the first year, and she said, is it okay if I don't return and on my own dime pay for the second year so I complete the study? And the district governor at the time said, sure. Well, we never did see her again. She fell in love with Costa Rica.
Oh.
You know, and it's, I guess, our contribution to Costa Rica and their community. So I guess we can look at it that way.
Yeah.
Well, that was very nice of you, Ed.
Yeah, well, we try to help. Kyle, that's about 5 minutes on this segment.
Let's go on a little bit further here. So we'll go back to this. So we've talked about the programs, and now let's work kind of backwards here to the input side of the equation, the giving to the Rotary Foundation. And I apologize. This is an hour-long webinar today. We're scratching the surface here, and I'm trying to throw as much information at you to pique your interest to learn more. Just because any of these topic areas, we could do a half-day session on, it seems at times. But let's talk about the input side. Certainly, there's many different ways to give to the Rotary Foundation. A person could, take a donor envelope or print a donor form online and send their check or their credit card info with the donor form directly to the Rotary Foundation. That's fine. A lot of clubs will coordinate payment through either their foundation chair, team leader in their club, or the club president, and that's fine. I think people are missing a huge opportunity, though, with Rotary Direct Online. Every Rotarian can sign up for a My Rotary account. In fact, non-Rotarians can as well. But that way, it's very easy. If you go in and you go to rotary.org and you click sign in, and either you have a My Rotary account already, or you create one, which takes about 10 minutes at most. Then there's a little button in the upper right-hand corner that says give. And you can just go in right that way, enter your checking account or credit card information. You can establish a recurring payment, and then it's just done. And you can set up a recurring payment monthly for as little as $10 per month, which is a great way to just get the ball rolling. Or if you wanted to become a Paul Harris Society member, which is $1,000 a year, and we'll talk about that in a minute, it's $82 per month. And you don't even notice it's coming out, and you're doing a lot of good in the world from that perspective. We have about 2,720 members in our district. I believe we have about 100 or 150 people that use Rotary Direct. We are missing a great opportunity there to encourage our members just to take care of it that way, so we don't have to chase them down. They don't forget about giving, anything like that. And that's something that you will certainly hear more of over the next, 2 years, 11 months and 6 days that I get to be the foundation team leader, for sure, because it just makes things easier. The other way is through plan giving, as part of your will or estate planning, setting aside money that can go to Rotary upon your death. That's also a great way to do things. I want to go back to the payment through the club's foundation chair or president for a minute. A lot of clubs in our district do it this way. They collect the money, maybe it's through dues, or maybe they just collect it as part of some other bill or something. And then the club will send in a check for the full amount that their members gave. They do this, though, without filling out what's called the multiple donor form that Rotary International has. And that form allows each member, or allows that person that's submitting on behalf of multiple donors to make sure each member gets proper recognition. So let's say I think there's 8 of us on here. Let's say there were 10 of us, and each of us gave $100 each year. Well, if we're not filling out that multiple donor form and I'm just sending it in on behalf of the club is getting credit for that, but each of us are not getting credit for that. So we're not going to be recognized for our donations over time. So that multiple donor form is extremely important to make sure your members get proper recognition for what they're contributing. Not only from a feel-good recognition, but frankly, and this is going deep, so Ed, stop me in 45 seconds, but your Rotary Club is a 501c4, not a 501c3 charitable organization. So if you are, along with the dues, you're billing, maybe it's $25 a quarter for your members, that $100 is showing as going to your club. Now, the club member may write it off on their taxes accordingly, but because the Rotary Foundation doesn't know that that specific member is giving those contributions, they're not going to get a charitable giving letter from the Rotary Foundation that serves as proof for that in case of an audit or anything like that. So not only is it good for recognition, but it's good, for making sure your members get proper, let's call it tax credit for that as well. So we'll move on here. How to give, how much to give. And the Rotary Foundation does a really nice job recognizing people for their giving. You're probably all aware of what's considered a Paul Harris Fellow, which is one of the most special recognitions someone can have in Rotary. And that's, you become a Paul Harris Fellow when you give $1,000 in cumulative donations to the foundation. And then each $1,000 level you hit above that, you become another Paul Harris Fellow. So your first $1,000 is a Paul Harris Fellow. At $2,000, you're a Paul Harris Fellow +1. And then it goes from there, +2, +3, up to +9. We'll get to that in a minute. E-Ray status. E-Ray stands for every Rotarian every year. You qualify for that as a Rotarian when you give at least $25 to the annual fund. A sustaining member is considered someone that gives $100 per year. And then we got the Paul Harris Society, which is very special. And those are people that make the commitment to give to the best of ability up to $1,000 per year. It doesn't mean you have to give it every year. You are making a commitment to make your best effort to give that. And that's a very special thing, because you're saying the Rotary Foundation is important enough for me to give at least $1,000 a year. And as I said before, you set that up on the monthly automatic billing. It's less than $85 per month. I know I do much worse stuff for $85 a month than give to the Rotary Foundation. And I'm sure all of you do as well. We have about 130 or 140 Paul Harris Society members right now, and we're looking to increase that quite a bit. Major donors are people that have given outright contributions of over $10,000 to the Rotary Foundation. Again, very significant recognition, and major donors and Bequest Society, which we'll talk about in a minute, they get special communications and different opportunities through the Rotary Foundation at an international level as well. Bequest Society, naming the Rotary Foundation in your estate plans, we talked about that earlier. Again, what a great opportunity to set aside money for when you pass away. Just, again, great ways of giving recognition and a lot of opportunities to give. Want to talk for a minute about foundation recognition points. This is something that I think is not only do I think this, but I know our District Governor Paul thinks this as well, and he and Carol asked me to specifically talk about this today. This is a well-kept secret within the Rotary Foundation. For every dollar that you give to the Rotary Foundation, either through the annual fund or Polio Plus, you receive a foundation recognition point. So if you give $100, well, let's scrap that. If you give $1,000 this year, might as well ask for that, you would get 1,000 recognition points. Same thing if your club is sponsoring a foundation grant and they give funds to the Rotary Foundation, a club can receive those points. And frankly, clubs that have sent in money on behalf of their members over time have a lot of foundation recognition points as well. A lot of clubs in our district have more than 50,000 recognition points just sitting there. And a lot of members have a lot of foundation recognition points just sitting there. So what can we do with these points? This is bullet point number 3. You can transfer funds to people to help them qualify as a Paul Harris Fellow, or use them to provide honorary Paul Harris Fellows to people within the community that embody service above self. I know a lot of clubs that do that, and they'll have special recognition throughout the year to provide honorary Paul Harris Fellows, and they get news, media attention out of it and really promote that. But it's a way to say thank you to people that maybe aren't Rotarians, or you could do it as use those points either through individuals or as the club to say, okay, anybody in our club that gives, we'll match up to $250. And if you do that, do the math. If you say, we're going to use our recognition points as a club to match a club member contributing up to 250, well, that club member gives 250, the club gives 250, they're 500 points then, do it 2 years in a row and they become a Paul Harris Fellow. So a really nice way to encourage people to give more or to recognize people. And you see that example at the bottom. If you're a Paul Harris +1, you have 2,000 recognition points that can be used. I've used my recognition points over time. All of my grandparents are now Paul Harris Fellows. After my wedding with my wife, Carrie, and we raised some money at the wedding for Polio Plus. So I got foundation credit for that. So we used those recognition points to name my mom and her mom as Paul Harris Fellows. And I've named both of our kids as Paul Harris Fellows, and all 4 plaques are sitting in our dining room. So anybody that comes over can see those. And we've created conversations there. So it's a point of pride in our family, and hopefully more people can use those over time. So that's what foundation recognition points are. So now we'll go to a couple more questions, and Ed, you can unmute everybody in a minute. But first off, with just how do you recognize donors in your club? When someone gets a Paul Harris Fellow, do you make a big deal out of it? When it's a major donor, same question. Or what could you do differently, just thinking about it now? Secondly, with recognition points, do you use them? And how do you think you could use them there? And any other questions? So it's 5:38, and let's go for 4 or 5 minutes now as well. Ed, go for it.
Okay. Jan had a question, but I think we may cover that in a little bit and just kind of focus in on this now, not to break the concentration. Okay. Something my club has done is reached out to members who have recently left, and they've taken their Paul Harris points with them. We've been capturing those back and having them donate them as we've given out honorary Paul Harris Fellows to people in the community. And so it's a great way to kind of recapture those points and put them to good use, because otherwise they're lost. Anybody else? Go ahead, Jan.
Yeah, we had 2 of the, one was a band and the other was a performer that performed at our Taste of Rose Fest. And they've been doing it for a number of years. And we this year gave both of them a honorary Paul Harris Fellow Award at the event, which I think had a chance to then be heard by some of the people who were there that weren't drinking all the wine. But and I know that in one case, it was my brother who's done it for 11 years in a row. It really was something that he was taken by, and I told him, that this isn't something that happens much. And he went back and talked to his brother-in-law, who happened to be another Rotarian, and made a big deal of it too. And I think it does maybe even start to have people think maybe Rotary is a place to be, not just because of the work I do. So I think it could also be a selling point.
Good point. Thanks, Jan. Patricia or Sarah or Betty, have you got, how do your clubs recognize Paul Harris Fellows?
This is Betty Jo. We have an annual banquet sort of thing that we invite the Paul Harris Fellows to, and I don't think they're always aware that they're going to be given the award, but it's nice to recognize them. I'm thinking of a couple people who are not Rotary members, but help with the backpack program that we do. They were recognized this past June. So it doesn't get out into the public probably as much as you're promoting. I would like to see that happen more.
Okay.
This is Paul. Yeah, that's when you're doing something publicly like that, that's a good opportunity for maybe Facebook Live to do it and to catch the moment. Just thinking of that. I was at a event for Chena Lakes, and there was a gentleman who opens up his building to very few people. It's a beautiful building. I can't remember the name of the company, but you know, they were talking about all the good things he does for the community and for that Rotary Club. And I mentioned doing something like Jan mentioned about recognizing them at their event next year. It's a good community event. So you know, and I know they don't have a whole lot of points, but they have more than 1,000. So I just encourage them to do that. And then at my installation, to demonstrate the you know, the points and using them, I did, my wife and I nominated someone for that, and got him and his whole family there. He didn't know anything about this, and it was pretty touching.
Yes.
It's a great great thing to do, and the points are just sitting there, so let's do some good with it.
You said,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
I was just going to say, you said something about the points going away once a member chooses not to join again.
The points, yeah, the points will stay with the person who made the donation. So we had a longtime Rotarian who was retired. He lives in Lakeville, and the commute up to St. Paul Sunrise just got to be too much, and he was, you know, focusing on other things, so he's left the club. But his points are still there in Rotary. There's still an account there, even though he's no longer a dues-paying member. And once he would pass, they would go away. And trying to make this thing stop. All right. Oh, geez, I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm gonna shoot this thing. So rather than lose those points, I've reached out to some of the members who have left and said, would you be willing to transfer your points? Now, they can't transfer them into the club, but they can transfer them to another person. So once we identified who we wanted to recognize in the community, I had them sign the form. They've emailed it back to me, and I just shot it into Rotary, you know, to the foundation, and we got the award and the pin and the medal and the whole shot, you know, in just a matter of a couple of weeks. So it's really kind of a slick way of doing it. But once they leave, if they pass away, those points are gone. You can't get to them any longer.
Ed, let's move forward here. I want to cover a couple more things and then leave enough time for questions. So if you have any other questions on the recognition end, we can come back to that. And I do have one other example to share there. So let's talk, here are our foundation goals that between the district foundation team and Paul as governor and a few other people helped put together. But you see, 500,000 in annual fund contributions would be a significant uptick over anything we've done. The last 3 years, in 2016, 17, we're at about 387,000. 17, 18, we're at about 435, and this past year we're at about 380. But if we don't have an aggressive goal, we need to push things, because I mentioned earlier, we're at a deficit with the amount of funds we have available for matching grants. This would alleviate that. Polio Plus, obviously $150,000 there turns into $450,000 with the Gates Foundation match. You can cure you can make sure a lot of kids don't get polio for that. Paul Harris Society, creeping that forward. This fourth one is important. Club presidents are the people that need to talk the talk, and we really want to encourage them to walk the walk as well. And typically we get between about 50–60% of all presidents giving to the foundation. We want to get that to 100 here. All clubs participating in a grant. Notice I didn't say sponsor a grant, it's participating in one. So those of you that are on this call, I would ask you to please do what you can to make sure your clubs participate in a grant. And then making sure all clubs have a foundation team leader just so the president doesn't have to carry the weight. And it should be somebody that's passionate about the foundation there as well. So those are our goals. Now, let's talk about 10 ways to have a successful year. Walk the talk, just talked about that. You can speak with a whole lot more conviction when you're encouraging other people to give if you've given yourself. Making sure there is a foundation champion or team leader. And don't do what a number of clubs do, where it's either the president-elect or past president that becomes the foundation chair. Please don't do that, because each president has, or each person has different skills, and each president of a club has different skills. And if we just ask them to fill this role, well, they may have just gotten done being president. They want to have a break anyway. They may not be a good fundraiser or be passionate about the foundation. We're not going to have anything good happen there. And so find somebody in the club that's passionate about the foundation to be that team leader. Participation in a grant, it just goes ahead and shows people what we're doing with the foundation, which, you know, the impact we're having, which makes them more willing to give. Make sure, number 4 there, make sure you're promoting the grant that your club is participating in. People aren't going to know about what you're doing as a club if you're not telling them what you're doing. Have either, if you're sponsoring a grant, have the main person that's driving that present to the club. If you're participating in funding another club's grant, have them come tell you. What a great way to help people understand what we're doing. Setting your goals, making sure your goals are not only set and entered in Rotary Club Central, but that you've communicated it with the club. I was at our the Prior Lake Rotary meeting yesterday, my club, and we had our kind of kickoff to the year, and one of our foundation team leaders stood up and said, these are our goals for the year, and we need everybody's help in reaching these. And we reached them last year. Thank you for that. Let's go get them again. It got everybody on the same page, so they were aware of what that impact will be. Hold a polio awareness event. We talked about Polio Plus at the beginning, and in fact, Paul just messaged me here. If we raise $167,000 as a district with the match by the Gates Foundation, it's $500,000, even a bigger number. But World Polio Day is October 24th. Plan to do something, and not only do it within your club, but do it something with the public too, so we can promote what we're doing to the public. It's pretty powerful when you can stand up there and say, okay, 350,000 cases of polio 30 years ago. Rotary has been the leader in this effort. We're down under 50. And people in public go, whoa, that's pretty cool. But if we're not promoting it, how do we even get more people involved? We're not going to get more people involved in the effort. We have a fund development team at the district level that will come out and help present to you why giving to the Rotary Foundation is important. A lot of what we talked about today is the nuts and bolts, the hows and whats. That's not what these presentations are about. They're geared towards hitting the emotional connectors in people, so they're more willing to give. And then you, as foundation leadership in your club, just need to make the ask, which we'll get to that. Educate members on ways to give. What we just talked about, the recognition levels and how to give. That's important to do so they know how to give. And I'll tell you what, if you're recognizing other people, well, that friendly competition comes into play. And if Paul's getting recognized for something, I want to get recognized for that. And I'm going to probably step up what I do as well. That goes to the recognizing club members for giving. Don't just pass along the Paul Harris Fellow after the meeting. Hey, you got another one. Congratulations. Make a big deal of it. Betty Jo, you talked about having, I think it was you talking about the banquet that you have that recognizes all the Paul Harris Fellows, or make a big deal out of it at club meetings so people are seeing this. Not only do you feel good about it being recognized, but other people are seeing it as well. And lastly, if you're not asking, they're not going to give. Plain and simple. You need to ask club members to give to the Rotary Foundation. And I will tell you that doesn't mean send an email to the club saying, hey, please give. It's probably one-on-one conversation, or at least ask the blanket request a couple times. And then the people that don't do that, follow up one-on-one with everybody else. And it's good to have a team doing that too, so you're not doing it by yourself. But the more you ask and the more you're able to craft what you're saying to show the importance of giving to the foundation, the better success you're going to have. And with that, I mean, we're going to have a very successful year in our giving, which means that we're going to have more money to make a whole lot more impact in the world. And that's, at the end of the day, that's the name of the game. And frankly, as we have more impact, then people are going to be willing to give more as well. So it's just it becomes a circle at that point. So I guess we have one more question break, and these are all overall. What ideas do you have to help create the foundation impact in your club? What other information do you need? How can we help? And any other questions? And as we do this, I'm going to just, I'll leave it here. So Ed, go ahead and open it back up. And first thing I'd like to do, Betty Jo, you're in the LeSueur Club, and I think you just took over as the foundation team leader, correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
yes.
So you may or may not know this, but so your club has been an E-Ray club, which is every Rotarian every year, which means that all members of your club give at least $25 with an average of at least 100. How did the LeSueur Club achieve that?
Cheryl just did a great job of talking it up each year. I think getting membership excited, and then going to those members who had not stepped up and inviting them to participate as well. And it seems like a lot of people do it right off the bat at the beginning. And there are always a few that wait right until the end. But with some encouragement, she was able to get everybody going. I have some pretty big shoes to fill.
Well, she's done a great job, but I know she's still there to help you, so you're going to do
Yes.
great too. And I want to key on something you said there, that people are encouraged to give early. We have so many clubs, and we see this every year, and Carol, as a past governor, can attest to this as well. We see this huge uptick in giving in June every year. Why wait? It only means that we have more work to do at the end. And like Betty Jo, what you were saying, encouraging people to give early, so then you can just find the few that you still need after that. It makes the job easier towards the end of things. And encourage your members to give early. Get your club to do that earlier in the year so you don't have to worry about things later on. Anybody else?
This is Patricia. I'm in the Riser Club in Rochester. I've only been a club member for 3 years, and I have given money to foundation, but I did not know it was a tax deductible donation. So I think that's really important to get the word out there. I mean, it's crossed my mind a couple times. It's like, well, it's just like giving to church. But I think just to really, for clubs to emphasize that is helpful. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Ed or Paul or Carol, you want to chime in on that one? I had to go shoo my children back outside to make sure that they didn't come in. I had it all planned with my wife that if we were still on the webinar, she would keep the kids outside. Grandma dropped them off, and Cooper just came wandering in with Lion Sleeps Tonight playing on his iPod. So
good. Yeah, I have let me make a comment or two if I can here. Nice job, Kyle. Great information and a good place to start with for everybody in terms of. I'm sorry.
Call from SPLC.
Who's?
Call from SPLC.
I think we got
Should
rid
I
of
keep
it.
trying? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, we talked about this last night too on the webinar that we did for membership. But in addition to these webinars that we're doing here, there will be a couple of things called the One Rotary Summit, and I encourage all of you to seriously consider attending that. Not only you, but other members of your club, particularly new members, because it's a wonderful way to learn a whole lot about Rotary and exchange ideas with other people from around the area or from around our district. It's a good idea. The idea, as Paul started commenting earlier, we decided to try this by doing a webinar because then nobody has to leave their house, if you will, and it's a way of imparting the information, which is always a good thing to do, but making it kind of easy. And then that's the second piece, like I said, is having the opportunity to work with the One Rotary Summit, where you learn a whole lot more about all of these things. And I can't resist this. You know, Rotary is famous for all of the acronyms that we use. We have alphabetic things for everything, and I'm hoping that we have, at least internally, sort of made an acronym out of District Training Assembly by calling it DTA. And I'm hoping that doesn't really stand for "Don't try this again." So we will be wanting to, I'm sure, collect some information, not information, but opinions from all of you after we finished all of these, to see exactly where, what worked for everybody, and areas where things maybe didn't work, or that you would like to do it a different way. That's very helpful for us, because otherwise, if we continue to do the same things but it's not benefiting anybody, that's a waste of everybody's time. We don't want to do that. These are far too important in terms of what it does for us, for our clubs, and for Rotary to simply ignore that. So we'd be very welcoming of any information or any comments that you care to make.
Well, this is Sarah in Rochester. I just want to say I really appreciate the webinar format. To not have to travel and to have a couple of choices of dates is wonderful. And for me, the new idea tonight was the idea of sharing points and using that as kind of an incentive to get people who may not have even started donating, to get them, to speed up the process for them to be recognized. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sarah.
One thing I'd like to chime into, just as a little bit of a caveat, there have been some clubs who have clustered a group together, and I think Kyle was talking about this earlier, where everybody kicks in a little bit of money, but then people would not get the recognition until the last year. And we had one member who finally got his Paul Harris Fellow this year, Don Kelly, who'd been a Rotarian in our club for a number of years, but had also been over in 5950 for a number of years. And when he came on board, I was always kind of amazed at how little he had given to the Rotary Foundation. And what had been going on is he would put in his $100, and then somebody else in the group would take the Paul Harris. So he never got credit for any of the money he ever gave.
Oh, geez.
And so that's a danger.
Yeah. And we need to emphasize that, not just here, but I think certainly as part of the president-elects and some of the other things that we do, and perhaps including part of the One Rotary Summit, to give people, let people know that's what's going on.
Yeah.
That's something that we need to make sure that people understand.
It was a nifty idea to get somebody jump started and get Paul Harris's up and coming. So, it looks really cool and it's flashy and it keeps it in front of people. But if that person leaves, well, they're no longer contributing, and now you're somebody, short, and the whole thing falls apart.
Yeah.
I know with the risers in Rochester, this year we started doing something 4x4 where people are in groups of 4 and they each put in $250 a year. And then one of them is chosen, a toss of a hat or dice or whatever, but to get the Paul Harris Award that year. Everyone's committed to, each person is committed to donating that $250 for 4 years.
So that's a great way to encourage giving, but be careful on that, just because what happens is the club is collecting all that money, and and then they're sending it in and giving, let's say it's me, you, Ed, and Carol are the 4 that are in that group, and you're selected to get that Paul Harris Fellow this year. You get the full-on credit for all $1,000 there. Paul Carroll and I, or Ed Carroll and I, whoever it was, don't get any credit for this year. So that's just those are great ways to encourage giving, but just be careful.
Patricia, what I like.
Dylan Rosner will be on for probably the next one, and she's heading this up, so that'll be helpful for her to hear as well.
But Patricia, what I like about that is it's just 4 years and not 10. So it goes a little quicker, and hopefully people can, hang in and continue to be members over that 4-year period, so that everyone gets, recognized.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's a key part. Any other last questions or anything? We're at 6:02, and I didn't want to keep you that long. I'm going to switch to this last slide as we finish things up. Obviously, thank you, but here's the main email information for myself and for Margie, who heads up the grant side of things, and for Paul Hofslein, who heads up the fund development side of things. We're certainly willing, ready, and able to, to help however we can, because, all of us together is what's going to make the most impact on the world. And, yeah, we can go from there. Any final thoughts from anybody?
Oh, nice job, Kyle.
All right. Well, if you liked it enough, you can come back in a week and a half.
Can we get the slides if we want to use them?
Jan, this is Ed, and this has been recorded so that yes, it'll be available on the district website with the slides and the presentation that Kyle has given and that you've participated in.
Well, I don't want to show all of the presentation or anything, but there are some of the slides that I think would be useful to put into a smaller presentation.
Ken, why don't you go ahead and shoot me an email, and we can work on getting you the right information there. Just I'll help you develop whatever's best for you. Yep, not a problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, this is Paul. This is Paul. I just want to thank you, Kyle, and Carol, and Ed for facilitating, and everyone else for participating. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having it.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.